it really actually feels like you're having a conversation with the person.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'm just like, oh my God, what does that face do? Like, I just feel like I can't handle it.
I try to look at what.
You can change it so that you can see everyone in a grid, right?
Oh yeah,
we're on the grid.
We're on the grid. We've been on the grid for many months,
which is great because like every session I choose a random athlete to make prolonged eye contact with for an hour, and they have no idea.
I'm just gonna call Sarah Strong out right now. She's always smiling, so I look to her for affirmation that I'm saying the right things.
She has like excellent active listening face. Like that's always the face that I make when I'm like recording podcasts and I need to like silently communicate like I'm engaged.
Yes.
I am listening. I am happy to be here.
And grateful.
I'm grateful. Resting gratitude face.
I don't know what that looks like. It's like in between Stoke and.
It's like 2 notches down from Stoke.
Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah, great. Yeah. Should we dive in?
Let's dive in.
We already starting late, so.
Starting a little late. It's okay.
As well. Case of the Mondays.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we're talking about competition, collaboration, and comparison on today's call. And I think maybe what sparked this topic, or we'll preface this with, I guess, something that Zoe and I talk a lot about, which is that we feel like races are a competition against one and a collaboration of many. And I think kind of what we mean precisely by that is that the only person you're really racing against is you. And it's important to acknowledge that a lot of people help you get there and get across that finish line. Whether it's friends, family, loved ones, coaches, the volunteers, the competitors that are at the event themselves supporting you. That's really what it's all about, at least for us, as we are as much, I guess, community organizers now as we are coaches. And so we really felt like this is a pretty relevant conversation to have. Did that kind of bring anything to mind? Did you want to preface this with anything?
For sure. I think sometimes people who are maybe newer to just competition generally will, or like who absorb some of our culture's more negative messaging around what competition is, might have the mistaken idea that it's about like beating others or besting foes. We used to have a joke where, in Scott Jurek's book, North, he talks about his mental journey from like thinking of trail running as a thing where you best foes to like, being part of a community. And a joke that I've had with TJ and Kristen is that it's about best friending foes and turning, just random people at races that you're competing against into your best friend, which is like, I think this is like particularly resonant for maybe even women in the trail running community, because there's less of us than men. And so we've been socially kind of like acclimated to see each other as competition rather than collaborators. I know this shows up for me, like I am really great friends with all of the coaches here on Microcosm. I have competed with and against and trained with every single, like Kylie, Kristen, TJ, Drew, like we've all, like Drew is one of my first training partners. I used to train with Kristen back in Boulder. Now I train occasionally with Kylie and with TJ when, COVID things allow, and we're all not injured at the same time. And I think that sometimes people just misunderstand that inherent in competition is working together, like with your training partner, with your friends, with your family, to become your best self. And that's something that like I really feel when I train with my fellow coaches.
Yeah, why don't we kind of get into more specifics? I kind of wanted to start on the competition side. Oh my God.
Do I have to get that?
I hate that doorbell.
We have a doorbell that rings once every 5 weeks and it's ringing.
Oh, I'm gonna check it. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. Who knows? I guess like one of the things that made me think about this topic is we had several athletes asking us about like competition, comparison, collaboration. But one of my favorite stories about this is a few years ago, Kristen and I actually signed up to run a 50K together in Moab. And Kristen had a freaking phenomenal race, went out and broke the course record by like almost 20 minutes, which is like in a 50K. And this is a competitive 50K. It wasn't like some random, like nowhere 50K, like a competitive 50K. She went and like demolished the course record. And I came in fourth, and it was just like a really great race for both of us. And when I got back to Colorado, one of my friends was like, man, it sucks that Kristen knocked you off the podium. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, the fact that Kristen went out there and had an incredible race is the reason I was so close to being on the podium. Like, for me, I need other women around me pushing me, like breaking records, for me to compete to my potential, right? Like, I don't care how I do in comparison to other people. For me, it's, I need other people to do their best and to be their best selves so that I can also do my best and be my best self. And I thought that that was just an interesting representation of, like, for me, I didn't at all feel like Kristen had knocked me off the podium. Like, I truly felt that her having a breakout race was like so fun to witness. Like, there's nothing better than watching your best friend zoom past you in a race. Like, that is amazing. And if it feels not amazing, then you might need to adjust your mentality around competition, because we need to support each other unconditionally in the way that we would want others to support us. Like, I know that if I had had that day, Kristen would have been just as stoked for me. I happened to lose a fight with the cattle guard, which, set me back a little bit. But I think that just shows that, like, culturally, we have some expectations around competition that tend to always be like, oh, like, competition is all about how I do in comparison to other people. It's all about, like, I'm better than this person, but not as good as this person. And for me, and for, like, when you examine the mindsets of a lot of other elite athletes, it's about pushing yourself compared to yourself and using the energy and support of other people to do your best, and understanding that you need other people to be excellent in order for you to achieve excellence. And so not putting other people down if they achieve success, and not viewing things as like a zero-sum game. Like, if you see someone else, like on social media or in your community, doing well, and your first thought is like, oh no, like, they're succeeding, so like, that's like, I'm not, or something like that, like, that's a cue that it could be time for a mindset adjustment around competition. I feel like for me, that's a story that stuck out to me as someone not understanding my mindset about competition, or my relationship to Kristen, who, like, again, like, I surround myself with women who push me in every realm of life. Like, Kristen is an amazing human, and like, at her job, at her coaching, like, in all these ways. And like, she, like, because she ran so fast, all the women that ended up being on the podium and me, we all came, like, I was the only one who didn't finish under the previous course record. Like, because Kristen went out and set such an aggressive time, 3 other women ended up setting incredible times too. So I feel like that's kind of the perspective I tend to take on these things, is like, when I go out to try to do my best, it's to help other people along the way. It's not just like for the sake of my own self-aggrandizement or whatever. It's like, okay, if we, like, I think if we're all chasing that level of excellence, then we inevitably pull other people up with us. And I would love to hear what either Kristen or Drew, people that I have run with in the past, think about that as well.
I'm trying not to tear up over here. That was so nice.
Such a fun race, Kristen. I miss you.
I miss you too. I do. I specifically remember that race, and I remember we were running together at first, and then the cattle guard thing happened.
Cattle guard, man. Yeah, mile 1, baby, hit the dirt.
Like mile 1, yeah. And I stopped with you, and I was like, oh my God, are you okay? What can I do? And then once I knew you were good, we just kept trucking along. But I also remember going up the last hill in that specific race, thinking like, I know Zoe's behind me crushing right now. And like, knowing that you were also having a good race, and that you were fit, and we were there together, and it was like just the whole community vibe, like, if anybody has never run a race with their best friend, I would highly encourage it. It's super fun. But it was also just really empowering, because, it's like, you have, like, I've got Zoe's back, she's got my back, regardless of where we're at in the race. I just felt so good and so empowered, knowing that we were there together, and that both of us were giving it our all. That was really cool to me. Plus, it's always pretty terrifying when Zoe's behind you, because she's very
Well, I remember like as I was like getting closer to the finish line, I was feeling a little like the way that one does at the end of a 50K. And I was like, I'm just excited to see Kristen. Like, I know she'll have accumulated the best snacks and like
Yeah.
probably a hard cider. And that's what I'm all about at this point.
Yeah, but I think one of the coolest things about that race too was, so Zoe fell at the beginning and her leg was just covered in blood, just all the way down. And she comes, sprinting through the finish line looking like a badass, just so tough. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you see that girl? Did you see that girl? Look at her leg." And the race photographer comes up and he specifically asks her like, "Hey, can I take some photos of your leg? That looks really awesome."
But yeah, I think that that's like a really important perspective to just, like readjust, and you'll do better as well, right? Like I think like sometimes people struggle to embrace that side of vulnerability because they're like, no, for me to do my best, I need to be like a hard ass and be like, I need to be number one, out for me, nothing else, like screw the rest of the competition. And in fact, research shows that when you adopt that more community oriented mindset, you will perform better as well. It's not just because we're like all hopped up on Brene Brown. Like this is like actually evidence based as well. Although we are
I also feel like
most certainly hopped up on Brene Brown.
Yeah, I'm definitely hopped up on Brene Brown. She's my favorite for sure. But I feel like when like running competitively as a kid and through college and stuff, it's like everything's so forced, and like the competition is it's there, and it's scary, but it's also so intense to the point where it's not always fun. And so I think now as like adults, we have the choice to reframe these things and dive in and unpack these mindsets that we have. And I think that that's really cool because when you have more of an open mind and you're more supportive, like, and you're empowering other people, like the universe kind of reciprocates that regardless of whether the athletes do. So I think that just like being a empowering, like positive person to whoever you're racing with or against, like it's sure you're competing, but you don't have to be a jerk. Like
and in fact
makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, in fact, if you find yourself being unkind, typically that's out of a place of insecurity, right? Like when you are dialed, that's when you have like when you're when you have confidence in yourself and in your training, that's when you're more likely to like be that kind person at the start and finish line as well. And I know this is something that like you've had like a pretty big mindset shift in the past 3 years, like how you like what your original competitive mindset was compared to what it is now. And I would love to hear how that's played itself out in your career.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't really think it hasn't been a 3 year
5 year
process. Because I've been a competitor since I was
I've known you for
6
3
years old. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I played college tennis, I was determined to beat everybody, and most of the time I did, and that wasn't great for reinforcing kind of a more holistic viewpoint around competition. But as people evolve, I think as my perspective has evolved, I've started to look at competition as more of an opportunity for celebration of the work that you do. If all you ever do is train and you never go and run a race, or you never put an adventure on your schedule, in your training plan that involves going harder than easy, pushing yourself outside of your, comfort zone, all you're ever going to do is train then. And so I think it's important to view, the competition as celebration of the work. So instead of going out there with the idea that, you're competing against somebody else, or you're competing to win, I look at it more as like, I'm out here to try to use my training to get from point A to point B as quickly as I can. And, wherever I fall, in terms of, the other competitors, that's kind of outside of my direct control. And so I can kind of loosen my grip around that and just enjoy testing myself on a specific course. Like the reason why I pick specific races is not because I'm looking for specific competition level. or because so-and-so is going to show up and I would like to measure myself against that athlete. I pick the race because I'm interested in the course, because the course is going to challenge me and force me to be my best. So yeah, I think in viewing that, and for me, it's a lot about that you're racing just yourself out there, especially in ultra running, especially the longer the event is. Spend a lot of time in your own head. You're collecting data on how you feel, data on where you might be in the field of competition, where you might be, if you're running against cutoff times, where you are and the point of the day versus where you think you're supposed to be. You have all this data, and then you have like how you feel and all of that comes into play too. And all of that can either be working for you or against you. So, when we think about competition, we say, oh, it's a competition against one person. It's only up to you, how you deal with that and all of those variables, all that feedback. So, making it into a positive experience, an uplifting experience for yourself, using it as an opportunity to internally support yourself through positive self-talk. A lot of great competitors and people who are focused on beating other people, they are very strong with their inner self-talk. But we can also externalize some of that stuff. And I think that, as microcosm members, anybody who's a member of this community, it's your job to spread the ripple effect of that positivity onto other competitors. None of you guys can go out to a race without lifting other people up. I'm really strict on this with my athletes. It's a big part of my race email that goes out to everybody. Your job out there is to celebrate the work that you did and to go out and try to do your best. That's part of competition and testing yourself. That's super important. But the other part of that is thanking every volunteer, every person that helped you get to that, to that moment, who is helping create that opportunity for you, recognizing that and being grateful for that. And then lifting everybody up, whether someone passes you, whether you pass somebody else, it's your job to support everybody out there, because if we are all mutually supportive of each other, we're raising the vibration and everybody is better off. And
rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
In all things.
Absolutely. I just think
not just in
so
racing
important.
too. Like this could be a group run. This could just be like on your like local like runners of Carbondale Facebook page, like whatever it is. Like you have a sphere of influence and you have a way to lift other people up.
Yeah. I guess, Zoe, a question for you is, and I think if you guys already touched on this while I was cleaning up the dog peeing, sorry.
But we got so excited about this topic that she urinated absolutely everywhere.
It's only the third time in the last hour and a half. Anybody has any tips, feel free to email me after this call. But I'm curious, like, you're really competitive. I find that you are often thinking about greatness, and you're often thinking about how you stack up against other people. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you define greatness? Do you define greatness through competition?
Well, I'm trying to define greatness less in the context of comparing myself to other people, because I think that is flawed and unhealthy. And I'm trying to move towards a conception of greatness as me living out my core values to my utmost ability, right? Like I'm someone that wants to be excellent, like at my job. I want to be an excellent partner. I want to be excellent at running. And that, doesn't like, it wasn't always winning races for me, right? Like when I first started running, I was like, I want to be excellent at showing up 5 days a week to run, like I want to be excellent at consistency. I want to be like excellent at like, like being vulnerable and signing up for my first 8K. Like I want to, like I value community. I value competition. I value following through on things. I value finding out new things about myself, and I value curiosity. And it's like competition for me is so much more about finding, like living out those core values than it is like, oh, I want to beat someone, or like I want to beat a certain time. Like when I'm racing to the extent of my ability, it's so much more about like about finding things out about what it feels like to push myself and to be vulnerable and to say to TJ, like, hey, I have this really vulnerable time goal. There's like a really huge chance that, I won't make it, but I want, like, to me, a value is setting goals and setting aggressive goals and pursuing them and like pushing myself, or like, just like discovering new things about myself. And so competition is just one format I can do that in. And I'm really trying to move away, like, especially in my career, to comparing myself to other people, because frequently it means I'm comparing myself to people who have been doing the same work for like a decade or more longer than me, which is just unfair, or just like doesn't provide valuable information, right? Like, when have you ever compared yourself to someone else and been like, excellent, I now have additional data that I can implement in a way that will make me better? Literally never, right? Like, that's not super valuable information. It reminds me of this Instagram post that Des Linden had last week, where she did a snapshot of like what you see on Strava. And it was like a long run that she did at like 7-Eleven pace, which is like pretty fast, but maybe not like Des Linden to the max fast. And then the next page was like what you don't see on Strava. And it was her running in like 6 inches of snow. And I just think, like, when we see the output of other people's lives, right, whether it's their career or their marriage, partnership, their kids, dog, like whatever it is, you're only seeing that, like, top 10% of the iceberg of what that person is. And what you're missing out on is like, that they're running in 6 inches of snow, or that like their partnership is hard and they're projecting a certain image, or like that they don't feel confident in their career, they don't feel confident in their athletic ability. And I think it's really important to not take what we see on the internet, Strava, Instagram, just race results generally. That's just one data point, and it's a very, very shallow data point, not using that as the yardstick which we measure ourselves against, because we have a lot of data about ourselves. Like, I live in my head all day, every day. It is a very messy, weird, dark place sometimes. And that's just like, that's a very full data set. And if I'm comparing that full data set to the like one data point of like, well, someone else ran this marathon time, then I will inevitably always fall short, and it never gives you valuable information.
Yeah, I think that's a really amazing way of looking at it. Particularly, kind of what speaks to me is the self-discovery kind of part of celebrating through racing and competition. I think that's huge, having those very acute experiences and moments where you can almost take like 1 or 2 steps, big steps ahead, transcending where you were before, and having competition or big adventures, moments where you test yourself. That those opportunities are really unique and really important, and not getting lost in where you end up in those results, and not tying it to your self-worth, I think is huge.
Something that I always tell myself during races is, this is not a referendum on who you are. This is a chance to find out what you're made of. And so, like, reaffirming to myself that my value exists so far independent of athletic competition, so far independent of career achievements, independent of athletic achievements, independent of all these things, like of all these external measures of who I am. And the important thing about who I am is that I have that willingness to find out scary things about myself. I have that willingness to like want to see what's on the other side, to be vulnerable, and to put myself into situations where I could fail publicly, where I could come up short, where I could be wrong, where I could be slow, like putting myself out there in a way that opens myself up to falling short of expectations, and then learning, like, if I exceed those expectations, great. Like, I have all this additional self-knowledge. If I fall short, even better, because I have additional data to get better on.
Yeah. I think, one of the pitfalls of competition, and we've kind of, glossed over this just a little bit, and I want to give it kind of another comment or two, is that, in the process of being a competitive athlete, and there's many of you guys that are on this call, many of you who have been on podiums in the last, 6 months,
36 hours,
or a year, or yeah, I mean, even over the weekend. And I think that is all amazing. And I just want to say congratulations. Like, that takes a lot of hard work and dedication and grit and perseverance, and all of that is valuable. But I think on the opposite side of the pole is this less kind of self-centered way of viewing competition and collaboration and competition comparison, all of those topics today. And something that like really speaks to the values of the microcosm community is that we really don't measure greatness through, you know, your wins. We measure greatness through how many people you go to in your own community and lift up and help become better runners, better people. You know, when we talk about, you know, it's your job when you go to a race to lift everybody up, we really mean it. And I feel especially that that is the measure of greatness that we really look for from you guys. You know, how many people do you positively affect in your day-to-day life? How many people do you lift up or help to be better versions of themselves through running or other modalities? And so many of you guys are super inspiring because you're doing that all the time. So I kind of want to give a shout out to that perspective. You know, it's great to be great. It's great to win and to be on a podium, but there's a lot more to life than just running. And I think that, you know, the perspective that we have is that greatness is measured by how many people you positively affect. So
greatness is the friends you made along the way.
Yeah. And the, you know, the true friends.
The true friends.
Yeah.
There's a really gross saying that like it's lonely at the top, and it's like, no, it's not. And if it is, you got to the top the wrong way. If you didn't bring everyone else up with you, then like you didn't do that great. You know, it should not be lonely at the top. If you're lonely at the top, you fell short of your potential.
All right, we could really unpack that by kind of explaining a little bit more about what we mean by that, I think. But if you get to your goal and your goal is to win and you feel lonely up there,
or like not even just win, but like whatever your goal is, right?
Yeah,
like
but if you need
a next step in your career and family life, whatever it is, whenever you achieve a goal, it will inevitably feel superficial once you get there. However, if you build community around the pursuit of those goals, it will feel fulfilling.
Right, but I don't think it's inevitable that it won't be fulfilling. I think it's only unfulfilling if you've lost sight of maybe your moral compass.
Correct. That's what I'm saying is like if you sacrifice core values to achieve a goal, then it will feel unfulfilling.
Yeah, so important.
But like these things are relevant, you know, even if you're not trying to like podium at races, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree. Awesome. Yeah, I think did we talk about surrounding yourself with people you want to be like?
I would love to know what you think about this. This is something, a thing that TJ and I talk about a lot is a culture of excellence and how we breed a culture of excellence here at Microcosm. You know, like this is something that we think about like when we are talking as coaches, because we talk a lot. We have a pretty insane text thread and also a whole Slack channel. That is the level of our communication on our team, because to us it's really important. Not only that we like lift you, like when I do something, whenever I feel like I've achieved something, like the first people to tell me I did a good job are my Microcosm teammates and like co-coaches. And that's exactly what I feel is a culture of excellence, is like people who unconditionally support each other in pursuit of scary goals in life and running. And I would love to know what you feel like. How does building a culture of excellence show up in your life?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think at the top of the pyramid, you know, we've got our coaches who are, you know, really high achievers and who set a really great example for other people in their, you know, in their micro communities around them in their areas of the country where they are. But ultimately, it's not just about like athletic excellence or even just like being like an amazing person, right? It's also about being, you know, unconditionally supportive of what each person's goals are. And I think that when we talk about collaboration and we tie that to a culture of excellence and how that can lift other people up and help them become, you know, better athletes, better people, better in whatever areas of life that they're trying to kind of, you know, transcend in, or, you know, find inspiration. For me, it's like having that like amazing example of somebody who's like out there, putting themselves out there, crushing it, failing, you know, with grace, getting back up, trying to work hard again, you know, and then, you know, providing the support. If somebody's, you know, not feeling great, you know, they're there for you. If you're not having your best day, you know, they can be empathetic and understanding. rather than, demanding or putting someone down. I think having that culture of excellence is not just about achievement as much as it's also about the unconditional support. Like that, I think that
Totally,
layer
yeah.
just kind of, for me, that solidifies everything. Without the unconditional support, the culture of excellence, a house of excellence, a community of excellence can't exist.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that it's so important that it's not just focused on like external achievements, but for me, excellence is about being vulnerable and setting your goals, like setting big, scary goals, whatever they are in your life. Like, honestly, it could be cooking like badass one pot curry. I do not care what your goals are. That is irrelevant to me. What I care about is that you dream bravely and then pursue those things with your whole heart and with the support of your community.
Yeah, I would agree. Man, I have to give a shout out to Drew, because I feel like Drew is one of the most like unconditionally supportive people I've ever met.
He's the reason they invented the Strava kudos button.
Yeah,
that's
like
a fact.
Seriously. And
it's not, but it could be.
In like where Drew is in Arkansas, like people like really look up to you. And I'm just curious on it, Drew, if you have any insights or thoughts on, developing that culture of excellence and how you've done that for yourself, because we see that in you, even if you maybe don't recognize it.
Yeah. So like I said in the chat, a big believer in the power of positivity. And I think that a lot of people would be surprised how few, I guess, other runners like communicate that they're proud of them, or just to like tell them good job and things like that. And I know we've got a really strong microcosm community, but outside of this community, like we're all runners too, I guess. And it doesn't matter if you're trail or road or whatever. And so that's one of the things that I've been doing over the last decade, really, of working with a variety of different level of athletes through a running store that I work at. And then with coaching athletes is even the simplest, smallest compliment that doesn't mean anything to you, but just saying, hey, I saw you out running. Good job getting out there in the cold. Or just like the smallest little thing can have such a big impact on a lot of people. And that can't be overstated. So it's one of my goals for years, I guess, has been fostering, I guess, a bigger community of runners, like runners support runners. And I've seen a lot of really, I guess, cool things from people that maybe didn't think that they were good enough or didn't think that they could. They had a lot of internal self-doubt that can be brushed away with just this, again, most simple of compliments out there. And so that's something that's really stuck with me. I don't get called out on it very often. I just assume that everyone did that, but there is something about just being a nice person, a nice runner, and not being able to see what you've done in terms of like changing people's lives just with a compliment is sometimes all it takes. But I don't know, it's kind of cool, but that's kind of what I try to do.
Yeah, totally. Like it doesn't have to be some like radical, like, like big culture of excellence thing. It can totally just be like jogging along with someone that you encounter on the bike path and being like, hey, you look really strong. That's awesome. It's cold out here. Like things like that are really, those can be hugely impactful. Or like telling people in a race that they look strong is always great. But yeah, I think, one of the things like inevitably like competition, we've talked a lot about the positive parts of that, but there is, also the comparison trap, right? Like one of the things that is positive about competition is we can learn things about ourselves and discover things and push ourselves and grow and get all these positive benefits. But there are what we want to avoid is turning competition into a comparison and only a comparison, and like using how you rank compared to other people, like, races, Strava, Insta, like whatever it is, like whatever life thing, like this isn't just running, this is just like everything. Instead of using that as like a way to just like rank yourself or like quantify your value compared to others, that is not a good thing to do. And so now I think we're going to talk a little bit about like how to avoid over comparison. And I would love to know, like, for you, TJ, like from a coach's perspective, what are the like besides the like, warm fuzzy downsides of avoiding comparison, there are like physiological downsides to comparison, particularly in training. I would love to know what your perspective on that is.
Oh man, I'm not sure if I can really speak as much to the physiological effects
I mean,
of
in terms
comparison
of
as
like,
much as maybe the mental and emotional side of it.
sure. Or I was thinking like, you know, why don't you, you know, why is it important for you to not compare your training to other people's, right? Like,
Yeah, totally. Well, I think the first and foremost is that, you know, each person's training is really unique to them. And there's a lot of different ways to the same place. There's a lot of different methodology and training philosophy available. Just go on the internet and look up running coach, and you'll find there's 100 different offerings out there, and a lot of them are, you know, the methodology is backed by different scientific principles, and that's all great. So when you see somebody else on Strava running such and such a workout, and maybe they're preparing for the same event as you and they're running different volume than you, just know that there's multiple ways to the same place. And it's really important to be confident in the training that you yourself are receiving, in the plan that you have. You know, I can give you the best build for your 50K, but if you don't believe in it, you're not going to get nearly as much out of it. And that's a fact. So, you know, one thing that I really work with athletes on is to just develop a strong sense of and reinforcement of this training is my own. I'm embracing this training regardless of what other people, what my peers are doing, regardless of whether, you know, Zoe and I have trained for the same races multiple times, and we do not do the same training at all.
Like at all. And I think that's something I used to struggle with, because I looked up to TJ so much as a person and athlete. I was like, wow, he's running, you know, such and such volume and he has such good outcomes. I must need to do that exact same volume to have those exact same outcomes, which I also admire. And we have biologically, we're different. Our work-life stress balance is different. There's a lot of things about us that is, in fact, we're more different than we are the same. We are totally separate people. But like, even if I tried to replicate TJ's training, the result would be like best case scenario, like underperforming, and then worst case, like burnout and catastrophic injury, because it's not the best training for me. And I think that there's always this temptation to look at other people's training and be like, oh, their easy pace is so much faster. Like I need to get my easy pace there, or their volume is so much higher. I want to be a high volume athlete or whatever like them. Or like, man, they're doing these giant workouts, or they're doing doubles, or they're cross training more. Like, why am I not doing that? And the thing is that your life, like you don't see on Strava what their life looks like. You have no idea, you know, like they might get to nap like 2 times a week. Like they may never have to take the kids to school. They may not be teaching Zoom classes. Like it's not appropriate to compare your training to other athletes, because you don't have the full data set of what their life looks like. So you're not taking that into account when you're comparing it with your full data set of what your life looks like. And as coaches, like that's the biggest thing that we strive to do, is to understand your life data set and build training so that it is a comprehensive part of that adapts to it. Rather than like trying to shoehorn, being like, all right, to run a 100 miler or to run a marathon, you got to run at least this volume. Good luck. We make it work for the person, because asking someone to like rise to the occasion of a specific amount of training volume is a recipe for burnout and disaster.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that like when I was first getting into sky running and having success there, I used to look at a lot of other similar athletes to me who were having similar success, but were much farther along in their careers, and always wondered, you know, why are they running so much more volume? You know, why are they doing more vertical? You know, all of these questions, you know, come to mind. Or like, how come they're able to have like more flexibility with their plan? Like, why does it seem like they do an adventure every single weekend while I am, you know, out here laying like this foundation for like months and months? And it's like, you know, you eventually get to that point where you realize like every athlete is on, you know, their own individual journey. You need to honor your journey. And to do that, you need to respect your plan and the end goal for that plan or that part of your training block. And to do so, at least for me, it's really helped to kind of like just stop following those people. Or if I'm having trouble with like a training partner who's maybe like just running too hard, I just won't run with them. I think that, you know, sometimes saying no and setting a boundary to adventures are great, guys. Adventures can be amazing, but there's no replacement for going out and doing focused work. If you don't do focused work, I hate to say it, but you won't get as far as you want to get. You can't, every weekend can't always be an adventure. I'm a big believer in making sure that you take your adventures at calculated times during your training. That way you don't sacrifice the longevity of the work that you're doing and your health and potential. You know, I know that that doesn't sound fun, but falling in love with the process and embracing getting a little bit better each day, even if it's just adding 1 or 2 more strides every week for, you know, 6 to 8 weeks to increase your speed, or adding, you know, going from 15-second hills to 30-second hills over 12 weeks, wherever you're at. I mean, that stuff has a lot of value, and it's going to get you where you want to go, and it's going to get you in to position yourself in such a way that you can complete your goal successfully with joy, and with health in mind. If we don't have those things in mind, and we're too busy looking at what other people are doing, you know, you may end up not even close to where you've wanted to be. I know that Zoe and I have both dealt with a lot of, you know, issues comparing ourselves to other athletes and people that we're racing against and things like that. And, you know, reframing some of that to be like, damn, that's awesome. Look what, you know, X did like in their training this week. Like, that's so sick. Like, I can't believe that. Like, I'm really looking forward to being able to put down a workout like that in like 2 years or something.
And being able to move to that mindset where you're like, that's awesome, this person is amazing, and it's irrelevant to my value as a person. Like, understanding that you guys, like, that 2 runners can exist and be amazing totally separately of each other, and that someone else being amazing doesn't make you any less amazing. It in fact makes you more amazing, is a much more sustainable mindset, and it actually results in better outcomes as well. Like, if you're the kind of person who just, like, you know, looks on Strava, Instagram, like whatever your favorite tool for like emotional self-flagellation is, that's just like not going to help you. Like, you're just not going to learn anything from that that's going to make you a better human or athlete, unless you adopt the mindset where you're like, there's so much amazingness in the world, I want to get my piece.
Yeah, gosh, that's awesome. You know, one thing that I think really helps, and it's important when you're also trying to develop your own kind of culture of excellence in your part of the world, wherever you are, is when you go out with runners, when you're going out for group runs, run at the effort level of the weakest runner, of the newest runner, of the most beginner runner. Don't ask that person to meet you where you're at.
You can always slow down.
Take the first step, slow down, make that person feel comfortable. That way you provide this amazing example of somebody who's empathetic, who is compassionate. And so that person doesn't, maybe they can avoid some of that comparison that may naturally be happening when you're, you know, the more experienced athlete. Just focus on having fun. We have so many athletes here who love to do group runs and things like that, and then come home from a group run, you know, being upset that the people in the group weren't fast enough, or you were slow and they were fast. Like, okay, support your people.
Here's
everybody
my thing.
Get on the same page.
Like, you're going to a group run, you are willingly consenting to understanding that unless you're, you know, like, someone's probably going to be faster than you, and then someone's probably going to be slower than you. I can't tell you how, like, I feel like I've had over a dozen athletes say that one of their like deepest fears is about being the slowest person at group runs, which is also one of my deepest fears, which means that we all just like need to be a lot kinder at group runs, right? Like, if this is all an internalized thing we have, we just collectively need to do better at building a community where people don't feel like showing up to a group run is once again going to turn into a referendum on their worth as a person. And just building that space.
Absolutely. I think everybody here has an opportunity in their communities to be, you know, a great representative of that, to be, you know, to be a beacon of light for everybody else, and to say, you know, hey, let's slow down. Let's make this conversational. Oh, here's
why. And be
why.
confident in where you are. Yeah. I have, like, there is, you know, whatever speed you are is a great speed, and you will not improve your speed if you don't accept where your speed is at now. Like, so many people will be uncomfortable with what their ability level is now, and so they'll push outside of that threshold and then undermine their chance to ever authentically progress. So don't train like the athlete you wish you were. Train like the athlete you are, and then you will actually be that amazing athlete that you want to be someday.
I completely agree with that. I think that, and then in bringing that full circle back to, comparing to other people and what they're doing, don't worry about their pace. Try to reinforce
I
with
guarantee you
yourself that
half
it's
the
not
people
important.
showing up to group runs are like fully tempoing like whatever you're doing just
Yeah.
to like, because they're scared on the inside. Like, we're all scared because being a person is hard and scary. So just like be that person who's willing and vulnerable to like set the speed of self-acceptance.
I like set the speed of self-acceptance.
That's like always me at group
Slow
runs.
and easy.
I know
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God.
We're in the back. When we
We're in
run
the
in
back.
Carbondale group runs, we are the slowest at the group run. And we're often the ones that win the races. So
You tell me it's not working.
Yeah, go slow. Be there for the beginner athletes. I can't tell you how important that is. You don't need to run fast, even on your easy run.
And if you are a beginner, that's awesome. Everyone has been a beginner at some point. And in accepting and loving your beginnerness, like that is how you will be. That is like what makes you badass now, right? Like accepting who you are and where you're at in your training and in life and in all things is the foundation that will actually let you authentically improve. Because if you like have shame, or if there's like stigma around beginning, or like just not being at the ability level that you want to be at, then it's going to be really hard to ever truly build to that place you want to be.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's where kind of the pitfalls on the mental and emotional side of comparison really start to weigh athletes down. And we've seen athletes, get the blues from, over comparison and things like that. So don't be afraid to set harsh, and strict boundaries. Like don't
with
follow
yourself,
with other people. Don't follow people on Instagram that you find yourself comparing, workouts with. Don't follow them on Strava. Stick to people that lift you up, people that are inspiring to you, and not people that make you feel lesser than, or like you're not enough.
Yeah. Go on private mode if you don't want to be compared to. Like, all of these things are excellent. Strava builds in amazing tools for you to protect yourself and protect your own headspace. Yeah. And I just, once again, just like no runner has like ever found the secret to success by comparing themselves to others. And the more you can affirm to yourself that that is true, like the better you can get at like avoiding the like doom scroll of like, oh my God, I'm so slow. Because everyone has done, like every one of my athletes has at some point written in the log, like, I'm concerned about my speed. And that's just like part of what wanting to be better is, right? Is like having that voice that's like, can we be better? And you can both accept like, yes, I want to be better, while saying I'm enough now.
Totally. Oh man, there's so much to unpack. I just wanted to comment on one thing that that you mentioned. As you get better and running easier, the output level that you can put out at an easier pace increases. And we're talking about, over several years. It's important to run slower on those easy days. The faster you go, the more impact forces there are, and that leads to breakdown over time. So what you see is a lot of really amazing athletes run most of their easy runs at closer to recovery effort. And I've mentioned this on a lot of calls.
Eliud Kipchoge runs 9-minute pace, and you can too.
Exactly.
Like that's like so much slower than how fast he runs a marathon that we all have. I think this is something we talked about recently, was like, now that we've both been training for 3+ years, we were like, our easy paces haven't on paper gotten that much faster, but we've definitely gotten a lot more honest about what that easy effort is.
Yeah, totally. And your easy effort has a big range. You respect that recovery effort falls in there, and don't be afraid to embrace that, even when it shows up on Strava and you've got a public profile. I mean, embrace your effort, and just know that when it comes to race day, that's your moment to go fast and to put, your best effort out there, and to celebrate all of those days where you held back a little bit, because, now's your chance to not hold back.
Yeah.
And to go for it and do your best.
Yeah. Because if every Strava upload is a chance for you to like shore up your self-worth, you will die 1 million tiny deaths.
and have 1 million tiny injuries.
And you will also suffer debilitating injury.
Yeah. I feel like that's just like giving yourself little paper cuts, you know?
Yeah,
Like
It
exactly.
is,
Like
Kristen.
every day.
good idea.
I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm going to make sure all my followers are
Yeah.
convinced otherwise. I'll stop feeling empty someday.
All right. Well, some people are really struggling with that. So
No, I get it. I say it jokingly because like I've 100% been there. It's funny because it's true.
It is.
You know, like
Yeah.
like these aren't things that we've like transcended and never struggle with anymore. Like all of these things, as in all life things, are things that we are still working through and learning about and have imperfect understandings of, but are like definitely getting closer. So that's good.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Tears are shed weekly in this
Tears are shed.
household. Yeah, it's very true on many and all of these subjects.
Yeah. Seeing as TJ spent a quarter of this call cleaning up dog urine from all over our house, like not perfect. Still trying.
Cool. Well, I feel like we've kind of covered this, but I'd love to just summarize it once again. You know, our feeling at Microcosm is that races are a competition against one and a collaboration of many. You know, you're racing yourself out there. You're collecting all of these pieces of information and all this data, and it's up to you as to how you react to it, whether you use adversity to lift other people up, if you use adversity during a race to boost yourself up and to perform better, or if you're just feeling great out there. You know, that is up to you. You have a chance to determine, you know, how you get from point A to point B and what kind of person you are in that process. And it's really important for us as athletes that we acknowledge, you know, the help that, you know, our family, loved ones, our co-coaches give us support. Our coach gives us support, you know, anybody.
Gratitude is a legal performance enhancer.
Absolutely. I mean, that the power of positivity out there and smiling, is huge, in passing that on to other people and thanking everybody out there. Without those people, you know, you wouldn't be able to have the opportunity to try to put all your training to the test and go hard.
When Meb writes his marathon race plans, he strategically puts in when he's gonna smile.
That's
because you can't sustain a smile throughout an entire marathon. Definitely not at the effort that Meb sustains. So he writes out like mile 6.5, smile, mile like 22.8, smile.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you know, with collaboration, use it as an opportunity to lift other people up. I think I kind of just mentioned that. But also to surround yourself with people who inspire you, people you want to be like, who are a great example for you in your life, who support you unconditionally and also push you to be better. And try not to fall into those traps of comparison. Make sure that you kind of kindly unfollow people who, you know, maybe aren't reinforcing some of the things that you want to be reinforced in your life, or that they don't share some of the same goals or values that you have. And particularly if any of those people are triggering when it comes to like comparing specific training plans and all of that, I would recommend unfollowing those people. I know that I have unfollowed a lot of pro runners that I look up to just because I don't want to see their volume compared to mine on Strava. Like, I don't feel like that's great for me.
Feeling bad about yourself does not make you faster.
No. So reinforce the good stuff.
Don't feel bad about yourself.
I do want to, I'll swing it back to Drew one more time. Even though he got off the call, he mentioned, you know, accentuating even the smallest bits of positivity and really being that light. I mean, that's what we're all about here. And so I want to offer you guys kind of the opportunity to take that back to your communities and to do the same for people around you. I think that's the greatest opportunity that we all have. So if you know a runner who is struggling with any of these things, or if you have a friend who's getting into running, you know, impart some of this wisdom onto them so that they can have a, you know, really great and joyful running journey.
Yeah. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Unconditionally.
And you're all enough no matter what your results are.
Yeah. We don't coach people for the results. Results are fun, but people are better.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks guys. You're all amazing for showing up and supporting us on these calls. Thank you. We'll see you on Friday.